Hi guys, today's session I'm going to cover introduction about the big data Hadoop. So why big data is required and what is the use of big data. So in this session I'm going to cover below topics: why data is required and why we have to store the data, what is the use of data, and what all are the companies that are providing big data Hadoop support, and what all are the use cases is there in big data, and in present market big data Hadoop or Spark really good? Is there any growth for big data Hadoop or not? So these topics are today I'm going to cover in this session. So first we'll discuss about data. So why we have to store the data? So here if we see Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and telecom domain companies. Okay, so these all are the big companies. They are generating more data. For example, if we take Facebook, so Facebook worldwide, millions of customers are there. So daily, more data is generating for Facebook. For example, you can assume I'm using Facebook. Today, maybe I will post 10 videos or 10 photos. Also, once I post, my friends will like, and same time they will give some comments, right? So these kind of data Facebook has to store. Why Facebook has to store my data? Why means after 5 years or 6 years, in case if I want to see the old data, my old data 4 years back, what exactly I posted, or 3 years back old data I want to see. At the time, compulsory if I want to see old data, compulsory Facebook has to store my data. So here problem is initially when Facebook entered into market, for Facebook company less data generated, but slowly customers increased, and now per day almost it is generating worldwide 1,000 terabytes of data. Only Facebook company is generating per day 1,000 terabytes of data worldwide. So how Facebook will store this data? So before coming to big data Hadoop in market, earlier only RDBMS is there, but RDBMS is supporting to store only structured data. But here Facebook is generating different varieties of data. Varieties means, for example, images, and sometimes audio files, sometimes video files, and sometimes unstructured data also. Unstructured data means whenever you will post some photo, your friends will give comments, right? Maybe some smiley symbols or some comments. In comments they will add some special characters. So this type of data will generally call as unstructured data. All this kind of data RDBMS is not supporting. So RDBMS is supporting only structured data. So that's why big data Hadoop came into market. So here big data Hadoop will support to store any kind of data, even if it is structured or unstructured or semi-structured. It will support you to store your data in big data Hadoop. And here even if you consider Twitter also similar to your Facebook, right? So Twitter also millions of customers, and per day it is generating more data. Also here SMS. So SMS also, for example, if you send your message to some other family member or friends, so telecom domain company, they have to store your data. Also here if you see telecom domain companies, generally they will store call data records also, and same time MMS messages also. MMS means multimedia messaging service. So why telecom domain companies they have to store our personal data? As for the telecom regularity rules, they have to store data. For example, if I call to someone, they will record my data. Why they have to record? Why means, as for the government rules, they have to store data in case some scenarios, okay, if any incident happened, so that time maybe court or police, generally they will ask telecom domain companies, they will ask to submit a so and so phone number related call detail records or maybe SMS records related data. That time compulsory telecom domain companies, they have to provide that information, or else they will cancel that particular telecom domain company license. So if you purchase a new SIM card, later if you call customer care and if you request them, I received new SIM card but my old SMS message is deleted. So if you request all old SMS messages, they will send to your mobile all those old information. So just these are the two examples I am giving. So data, each and every person life, data storage is important. Even if I'm teaching here, maybe I'm working in some software company, so I want to store data, right? For example, previous company related pay slips, or maybe documents, or maybe my certificates. These are required for future purpose, so compulsory I have to store my data in my personal laptop. So same way, it's not only related to social media companies or telecom domain companies, it is required in all the domains related companies nowadays. So each and every company, they have to store their data. If you go for software companies, they have to store their data. If you go for airlines companies, they have to store their data. If you go for retail domain companies, they have to store the data. Retail domain companies, they have to store data. Some people generally they will ask this question: what, sir, you are telling all the data we have to store, why retail domain companies they will store our data? Why means, sometimes to grow their business they have to store our data. Why means, for example, today or maybe tomorrow some festival is coming, okay? So 1 year back you purchased some item in maybe more mega store. Okay. Again, they are planning to give some offers coming festival. So at the time, generally what they will do, they will take all the old customers related data, phone numbers, and they will send SMS messages. So coming Tuesday or Wednesday due to festival, we are giving so and so discounts, electronics 10% off, or vegetables 5% off, or like that. They will give free advertisement. So they will generally use our data for free advertisement purpose. So that's why each and every company generally they will store a data. And not only retail domain companies, if you come to insurance companies, even insurance companies, health insurance companies also, they will store our data. Why means, for example, you have only 1 lakh limit to claim for a year, but already you claimed 80,000 rupees. Again, suddenly, if you're trying to claim another 1 lakh rupees after 10 days, so they have to check your old history, right? Whether you are eligible for 1 lakh. If you are eligible for 1 lakh, already how much you utilized for this year? So you already utilized 80,000 rupees. So compulsory, they have to store the data. Then only they will come to know, right? Already you utilized or not. That's why even health insurance companies also, they will store customers' data. So nowadays, different companies, different types of varieties of data it is generating. So they are storing all kinds of data. So to store all kinds of data, existing technologies are RDBMS not supporting. That's why big data came into picture. So here, before big data Hadoop coming in our industry, they faced many challenges because existing technologies not supported a high volume related data. So generally RDBMS, if you consider RDBMS, yes, it will support kilobytes, it will support. If your data is there in MBs, it will support. If your data is there in GBs, it will support. But what about terabytes and petabytes of data? If your data is there in terabytes and petabytes, your RDBMS will take more time to store the data. So that is one major problem in RDBMS. So this high volume related data issue solved by big data Hadoop. And coming to high velocity. So velocity means you have to store very fast your data near real time. For example, you done one transaction in ATM. So that transaction immediately you have to store. So that much faster, there is no technology to store that much faster data. So here near real time or real time data we have to store. So for example, if you consider some WhatsApp, if you send a hi message immediately in live, it will reach other person. So that kind of real time and a fast processing kind of technology is required. So very short time, fast processing, only big data Hadoop is supporting here. And coming to next point, variety. Existing technologies is not supporting different varieties of data, like unstructured data. Yes, your RDBMS doesn't support to store unstructured data. And what about images? Yes, RDBMS supporting images. One concept is there, globes and blobs. It is supporting, but it will take more time to store that data. Which technology will support to store different varieties of data means only your big data Hadoop will support to store the data. It will allow you to store structured data, and it will allow you to store semi-structured data, and it will allow you to store unstructured data and images, videos, audio files, any kind of data your big data Hadoop supporting. And fourth point, complexity. So complexity means here see you just assume unstructured data is it will not like structured data, right? Unstructured means generally some special characters or some smiley symbols, or it is not in format, it is a completely different, like a paragraph kind of. So even that kind of unstructured data also using big data Hadoop, we can align in some order, we can process and we can store in big data Hadoop. So these are the four challenges existed. So these four challenges big data Hadoop resolved. That's why nowadays most of the companies they started using big data Hadoop. Big data we already discussed about social networking related and telecom domain related, and even this health insurance related also we discussed, and retail domain related also we discussed. Okay. So coming to some facts and big data market, how big data market is growing. So 2011 worldwide it generated 7.60 US billion dollars, and coming to 2021 it is going to generate a 66.11 billion dollars. So as for industry they are expecting 2026 it is going to generate worldwide 84.69 USB billion dollars revenue. And here I'm going to give some big data examples. So why data is growing? So here left side, if you people see data initially in KBs, after that MBs, after that GBs, after that terabytes, after that petabytes. Now we are in position terabytes. Why data is growing like this? So for example, here I will give one small example. 10 years back, if you send one SMS message or one mobile pic if you take. So that time most of the people they used only VGA cameras in mobile, Nokia mobile or Samsung, small VGA cameras. So if you take one picture, it will generate that file size, that picture size, only kbs it will come, only kbs. But in present generation and the current situation, each and every mobile 100 megapixel camera or 48 megapixel or 60 megapixel camera. So if you take one pic, it is coming almost to 10 MB size. And if you record one 4K video, if it is coming 1 minute recording, 1 GB file size it is coming. So that means technology is growing day by day. Same time data size also increasing day by day. So initially only SMS concept is there. So that time data size is very small size. Later they introduced the speech to text concept. So instead of messaging, you can speak and you can send audio message. Even nowadays in WhatsApp we have that feature, right? You can record and you can send. So here also data size increased. And later in mobiles, previously there is no HD video recording, but now they introduced completely HD video recording and UHD concepts and 4K video recording also. So automatically data size increased because quality increased, same time data size also increased. And the business data fits. This is any kind of business related data. And external demographics. So here external demographics means generally if you take one video of, for example, marriages or some engagement functions, generally photographers they will capture video, right? After that they will do some they will apply some graphics on top of that, they will add background music and they will add some uh, text quotations. Okay, so automatically there also size increasing. And coming to next, GPS coordinates. So if you consider Ola, Uber cabs, they are using GPS system. So for Ola, Uber also per day it is generating more data. How it is generating? For example, if you take cab from one location to another location, okay, so it will calculate. First, it will take your phone number, user data, how many kilometers you traveled, how much amount you paid, whether you paid via some UPI or you hand over the cash, total how much bill generated, complete all the information, even driver related details also it will capture in our system. So in GPS system also it is generating data. So for Ola company, not only single cab, right? Each and every big city almost if you consider Hyderabad, more than 500 cabs are running only for Ola company. And Uber, if you consider Bangalore, almost 700 cabs are running. So all the 700 cabs related data daily, maybe multiple trips, one location to another location, from there again another location. So all this information, this kind of data they have to store for recording purpose or future purpose. So that's why even wherever GPS system is there, there also it is generating more data. And the social interactions. So social interactions we already discussed, right? Like a WhatsApp chat related data or Facebook chat or maybe your MS Teams related data. So not only this, earlier people used R code and Twitter, nowadays Twitter. So all social networking sites, there also more data it is generating. So that data also they have to store. And user generated data. So in case if you generated your own data, so that data also we have to store. So left side data initially in kbs, after that mbs and gbs, now situation is in terabytes, in future maybe petabytes also it will generate. Okay, and right side I given reasons. So technology increased, so initially SMS concept, later they introduced speech to text, and again later they introduced full HD video and good quality images and GPS system and social networking systems. Now more customers, that's why more data in social networking. So these are the reasons, and at the same time these are the examples for big data. And coming to Hadoop, so here why elephant symbol and why Hadoop? Who kept this name as Hadoop? Why elephant symbol? Actually, this Hadoop implemented by initially Big Data Hadoop implemented by Doug Cutting. So he is the guy who implemented Big Data Hadoop. Earlier, he worked in one multinational company. After that, due to some issues with management, he left from organization. Almost 2 years he spent in home, and finally he implemented his own Big Data Hadoop. When he was implemented Big Data Hadoop, that time he was a kid. That kid, 2 years old kid. So daily that kid was playing with a toy. So the toy is this elephant symbol. So that is the one reason to kept this elephant symbol. And another reason, this technology basically to store large data, big data files. So elephant also looks like bigger. So due to these two reasons, he kept that elephant symbol. And why he kept name as a Hadoop? Why means that kid, whenever he was playing with the toy, so the toy nickname is Hadoop. So daily kid will call Hadoop, Hadoop, Hadoop. That's why he kept for this technology name as Hadoop. Okay, so this is the meaning why he kept Hadoop and why elephant symbol in front of Hadoop. Also, basically, this is open source technology. Big Data Hadoop is completely open source technology. So later, this guy handed over this Big Data Hadoop technology to Apache Software company. So now Big Data Hadoop is from which company means Apache Software company. And what are the advantages? How big data files Big Data Hadoop will handle? It will handle if your data is in terabytes and petabytes also it will handle. Even if it is a structured or unstructured or any varieties of data, Hadoop is supporting on commodity hardware. So commodity means cheap quality hardware also you can store your data. You no need to use supercomputers for storing your data. You no need to use supercomputers. You can store your data on cheap quality hardware machines also. So your big data hardware is supporting. And it will support to read and write operations and also high performance. How it will give high performance? Because here completely distributed your data it will distribute. Maybe later classes I will give more explanation about how it will distribute. So compared to other technologies to store your data, here it will give high performance. And coming to next slide, here which technology is more growth? If you see here servers, so servers overall growth between 2010 to 2015, any kind of server, it is Apache Tomcat or Java server, whatever, 27.3%. And storage, data storage, 61.4%. And networking, any networking, 42.4%. Softwares, in market we have different softwares, right? 34.2% growth. Services, 39.5%. So which one has more growth though? Data storage So data storage 61.4% growth. And how your data will generally store in Hadoop servers. In real time, here we are seeing this is server room in a Yahoo company. So in this server room, here we are seeing some racks, rack 1, rack 2, rack 3, and number of racks available. So inside each rack we are seeing some disks, right? Here small disks. So in real time, whatever data Yahoo company is generating, all the data it will store inside this hard disks. So for example, you logged in a Yahoo mail, you sent one mail to your friend. So sent items it will show you that body and content too, right? So that all the information in real time it will store inside this racks and inside this hard disk. In real time, big data Hadoop related all the data it will store generally in server rooms like this only. This is just one example how in real time data will store. Understanding about big data. So till now few topics I covered and I will see remaining topics now. And BI tools related already we discussed, and BI related tools also not supporting high volume related data, and different varieties of data also not supporting. Also velocity also different like fast performance related also existing design or architecture not supporting in BI tools. Also it is very expensive to handle complexity related data. So these are the some challenges existed in BI tools also. Those challenges are resolved by big data Hadoop. And what are the advantages is there in big data Hadoop? So one is this is completely Java based framework. So big data framework implemented by using a Java code. So that is completely they implemented using Java code. Also, it is supporting structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, and it will allow you to process large data sets or large data files. And completely big data Hadoop is open source technology. Also, can handle rapidly changing the data. See, can handle rapidly changing the data means, for example, one person is processing structured data, another person processing unstructured data, and one more person processing semi-structured data. Even multiple different varieties of data, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, continuously, if it is coming also, your big data Hadoop will store your data, any varieties of data, any kind of data, it will allow you to store. Hadoop uses not only the storage, so big data Hadoop not only for storage purpose, okay, even Hadoop having processing capability also, not only data storage, it is having processing capability also. Also, Hadoop framework are scalable and fault tolerant. So scalable means, for example, uh, you have only 1 TB storage limit. So maybe that storage is going to full tomorrow. So yes, if it is going to full also, you can buy 1 more TB and you can add into existing cluster. So you can increase that capacity or you can add more capacity or more storage. So that is called scalable. Increasing or decreasing is called as scalable. And fault tolerant. Fault tolerant means you stored your data in one server. Okay, maybe that server is crashed. What about backup? How about your data? So here each and every data it will store in three different servers, three different places. In case if one place, one location, that particular cluster or server is down also, your data it will read or it will retrieve from different location server. That is called fault tolerant. And also Hadoop enables you to process petabytes of data also. Okay, but at present in most of the companies only till terabytes it is generating. Maybe in future if it will generate petabytes also, your big data Hadoop will support. And also evaluation of Hadoop. So here three things we should know. One is hardware, second one is data, and third one is software. Hardware related mainly 40 years back, it is very expensive, right? So even not only 40 years back, 15 years back, if you want to buy one laptop, okay, just 2 GB RAM and some 250 GB hard disk, 40,000, 50,000 rupees. But now same 50,000 rupees you will get 8 GB RAM and 500 GB hard disk. So now technology improved and some competition is there between all the manufacturing companies. That's why prices also reduced now. Also coming to second point, data. So data is very important nowadays. So each and every company they have to store data and it is very valuable. And coming to software, here two things. Mainly coming to big data, we have different models. HDFS basically to store your data, and for processing capability, MapReduce model. So later classes I will give more details about HDFS and MapReduce. And about commodity hardware, fault tolerant and open source we already discussed. A little more about Hadoop. So Hadoop is completely open source project and it is from Apache software company. And basically Hadoop is a framework. So what is the framework here? Even we heard right Java also some framework, Spring framework, Hibernate and different frameworks. What is framework here? Generally framework means some built-in code, built-in functions or built-in functionality. 50% code it will come with your software, and based on that remaining 50% we have to implement. That is called a framework. They will define some built-in functions. For that built-in functions we have to pass our parameters so that it will give results. That is called framework. So Hadoop is a framework here. Basically here we have two important concepts. One is HDFS. HDFS means a Hadoop distributed file system, and the second point is MapReduce. So HDFS basically it will allow you to store the data. A set of machines running HDFS and MapReduce is known as a Hadoop cluster. Even in one cluster, if it is single node or multiple nodes also generally will call as cluster. Cluster means single or more number of machines. In one server room, you can keep one rack or multiple racks. Each rack contains some nodes. Each node will store some data, whether it is 5 terabytes or 1 terabyte, whatever. Also, HDFS allow you to store data. Basically, to store data back they implemented a Google file system GFS. Based on Google file system, they implemented a Hadoop distributed file system. Based on Google file system, they implemented a Hadoop distributed file system. So basically HDFS, you, you can store your data one time and you can read n number of times. Also MapReduce, it is just allow you to process your data and it will allow you to store inside HDFS. So on top of HDFS they implemented a MapReduce model. So Hadoop can run MapReduce programs written in various languages such as Java, Ruby, Python and C++. But usually Java is preferred. Why Java is preferred means they implemented Big Data Hadoop using Java framework. That's why by default Java is preferred. Also here we have some examples of big data that already we discussed. And what is big data or Hadoop? So Hadoop we discussed, it is a open source framework and it is came from Apache software company, and it is allow you to write a large amount of data. Also it will allow you to store your data in large clusters which could have thousands of computers on the clusters. So coming to examples of big data, we already discussed. So Facebook. So Facebook is generating 500 plus terabytes of data per day, and also New York Stock Exchange also it is generating 1 terabyte of data per day. Even Jet Airlines also collecting 10 terabytes of data every 30 minutes. Why Jet Airlines collecting that much data? See, Jet Airlines they have multiple flights, right? So peak hours, maybe Bangalore to Hyderabad, Hyderabad to Chennai, Chennai to Mumbai or Mumbai to US. So many flights, apparently many flights will run. So each and every flight they have to store customers data, right? Which customer is traveling to which location onboarded. Okay. So whether for him in flight they provided breakfast or not, what kind of ID proof he submitted. So everything they will capture. So that's why it is generating 10 terabytes of data. And characteristics of big data. So high volume, high velocity, variety. So Hadoop is supporting to process high volume related data. And velocity. Velocity basically to analyzing the records, identifying the reason for losses. For example, you consider one retail company is there, maybe Big Bazaar. One customer purchased maybe one item. He paid 600 rupees. So generally, all the cashiers, end of the day after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock before closing the store, they will give updates about transaction details and the cash they will hand over to store manager, right? So that store manager, he will calculate. In case one item, 600 rupees it is showing, but the actual price 650 rupees. So generally what they will do analysis why that 50 rupees mismatch happened, whether that is cashier miss or cashier problem, or maybe on top of that item instead of 650 rupees price tag, by mistake they tagged a 600 rupees. So these kind of analysis they will do. So reason for losses, they will do this kind of analysis. So next time they will generally to to resolve these kind of issues, next time they will conduct a meeting with all the cashiers. So you people are doing these kind of mistakes. So due to these mistakes, we are getting losses. So based on these guidelines, next time they will not repeat, so that slowly this kind of losses it will reduce. So velocity basically to do analysis for business losses and varieties. Varieties already we discussed. Your Hadoop will support any kind of data. And a brief overview of Hadoop history. So initially 2002, dog cutting created an open source. After that 2004, Google published MapReduce based on a GFS papers. GFS means Google File System. In 2006, dog cutting developed the open source project. And initially, only MapReduce and HDFS, only these two models came into market. So HDFS, it will store your data, and MapReduce a processing capability. In 2008, Yahoo company, they did one setup in a cluster room. They installed 4,000 machines, 4,000 nodes, and they tested that it is supporting to store data in all 4,000 nodes, and same time it is giving fast performance or not. That kind of testing they done. After that, successfully it, it is reached benchmark within sort of time. After that, slowly most of the big data companies, they started using big data Hadoop from 2009 onwards. So in 2009, again Facebook launched a SQL support related module, that is Apache Hive model. So Facebook company implemented one Hive model in big data Hadoop. So Hive model generally it will allow you to process semi-structured data. And what are the domain companies they are using a big data Hadoop? Social networking companies, airlines companies, banking domain companies, e-commerce, mailing, telecom domain, retail domain, healthcare domain related companies also. So nowadays there are many domain companies, but here I specified only few domain related companies. And coming to companies that are using. So earlier only 50% companies used big data Hadoop, but now almost 90% companies they are using big data Hadoop. So these are the main companies I just specified for your reference. Also, here these are the different components in big data Hadoop. One is HDFS, your data storage purpose. On top of HDFS, these are the modules implemented: HBase, MapReduce, Hive, Peak, Scoop, OG, U. So these all we'll see in later classes. This is about big data introduction. Thank you guys for watching this video.